Honorable Minister Klimczuk, members of Parliament, representatives of the clergy, Mrs. President Teresa Schlamp-Frigga, ladies and gentlemen, contrary to some of my co-speakers, I was warned I'm gonna say something. And this is dangerous because I'm a former journalist. So when I started to write down what I'm gonna tell you, it went quite well. But John permitted me to have around 20 minutes of speech, so please enjoy your wine and enjoy your coffee. I'd like to invite you to listen to incredible story. Incredible story of a country which suffered for centuries, and in the last 25 years only managed to change itself from being one of the poorest nations in Europe into being one of European leaders. And these are not my words. These are words which just a week ago Madeleine Albright, first female US Secretary of State, described Poland, by the way, in my home city of Poznań. But I won't hide from you that the story about 25 years of Polish freedom and Polish success is something I'm very much personally passionate about. I was born in 1970, so still I can claim that almost half of my life I spent under the realm of communism. At that time, Poland looked gray. One can say, particularly in the 1980s, looked hopeless. I remember almost every day, maybe every other day, after finishing school at about 1 or 2 p.m., coming back to our SAM. Those of you who are from Poland remember SAMs, so little grocery stores. And I kept staying in line for 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours until my mom came back from her job. And we stood for everything. We stood for butter, meat, tea, but also for toilet paper. Poland has always had difficult geography and history. In fact, in the last 300 years before 1989, we can claim to have only 20 years of full independence. The World War II, which is often forgotten here, also did not end with victory for us and the whole region. With permission of the West, Soviet Russia was able to install in Poland communist system. And this system for the next 45 years kept killing thousands, and even more importantly, kept wasting efforts of millions. For 40 years, Poland has been most troubling, most independent camp, barrack in the Soviet camp. But the real change came in 1980. Not by coincidence, 2 years after Polish Pope was elected, and a year after his first pilgrimage to Poland. In 1980, the powerful wave of strikes created independent anti-communist trade union called Solidarność. Yes, the movement, 10 million strong, was crushed just 16 months later, but there was no coming back to normalcy in Poland. Solidarność was still active underground. Over 2,000 periodical newspapers were being printed in the underground. I was proud to be editor of 2 of them. There was independent cultural life, mostly in churches, and demonstrations were, anti-communist demonstrations were frequent and massive. And as you see, we young people took part in them. In early 1989, communists were not only bankrupt morally, but also literally financially. And they agreed to roundtable negotiations with Solidarność. That led to first mostly free, not totally, but mostly free elections in which Solidarność won 99% of seats which were competed. And that was June the 4th, 1989, and that's why we celebrate this date today as symbolic end of communism and beginning of free Poland. Just a couple of months later, the government of Tadeusz Mazowiecki, the first anti-communist prime minister in the whole Soviet bloc for 45 years, was created, and that led to the avalanche of events in the whole Central and Eastern Europe, including the fall of Berlin Wall, which was the symbol of Soviet domination over half of Europe. 2 years later, in 1991, Soviet Union itself collapsed, ending 80 years of one of the most brutal and illogical experiments of human history, communism. We Poles are proud to be part of this tectonic change in the world. But we are also very much proud of what we achieved since. In 1989, communists left Poland in disarray. Hyperinflation was, beware, 586% per year. 586. Export and foreign exchange reserves almost non-existent. Poland was one of the poorest nations in Europe. Now, after only quarter of century, 25 years, export increased, beware, again, 20-fold to over $200 billion. Inflation last year was 1% only. But it's not only great microeconomic numbers. Last 25 years brought civilizational change to Poland. Crime rates, for example, are cut by half. The influence of women, always important in Poland, was multiplied. Now Poland actually has one of the highest percentage of women business owners in the world. And then there is a boom which we are especially proud of, education. There are about 2 million students in Poland, second highest number in Europe. In PISA, global metric for quality and efficiency in school education, Polish students ranked 9th in the world in science category and 10th in reading. The Economist magazine, in this year's report on education in the world, ranks Poland's system as 5th best in Europe and 10th globally. Yes, Canada, you are 7th. But beware, we are closing just advanced 4 places in a year. And we proudly have 8th place in English Proficiency Index, a survey conducted in 60 non-English speaking countries and territories around the world. For the first time in history, we are catching up with Western Europe, and fast. In 1989, Polish GDP per capita was only 30% of Western Europe. Now it's 68%. Of course, there is a lot left to do. 68% is not 100. Unemployment is still too high, although this year we will be on EU average. The birth rates, despite my efforts, are very disappointing. And still, there are a lot of young Poles emigrating. But all in all, facts are clear. Polish success is impressive. It was created because of policies of many presidents and governments from left to right. But first and foremost, this is a success of ordinary Poles, of hard-working entrepreneurs, teachers, workers. Polska has been in the last 20 years #1 in productivity growth in the world. It all would not be possible without our heroes, without heroes from Solidarity generation, from 1980s, but also from the heroes of the great generation of World War II, which fought for free Poland and had to wait for it for 45 years, quite often on exile. Distinguished Poles from both of those generations are here with us tonight, are here in Alberta. And let me tell you how proud we are of you, Polish Albertans, of what you achieved since the first Poles arrived here in 1895. You preserved the culture, the language of your motherland in more than 120 years. Whether it was the creation of what is now known as the Polish-Canadian Society after First World War, or the Saint Jan Paweł II Polish bilingual school, the only one of its kind in Canada, you all have demonstrated that with determination and strong leadership, all things are possible. I strongly encourage you to continue to celebrate our culture. Educate your fellow Albertans about Poland's contribution to the global family and commemorate our heroes. Those who fought for freedom, not only Polish freedom, but global one, whether it was at the Battle of Monte Cassino or at the shipyard of Gdańsk. We owe a lot to Polish diaspora around the world, but especially as well organized as here in Canada and especially in Alberta. I keep telling Polonia activists from other parts of Canada when they asking me what advice do I have for them, my answer is very short. Just follow Alberta's example. I think there is a unique mixture of Polish toughness with Western toughness here. Thank you for that. Allies and friends, among them Canada, were crucial to the success of Poland. Canada was especially important 15 years ago when Poland, together with Czech Republic and Hungary, tried to join NATO. Ottawa was the first NATO capital to ratify our membership. We will never forget it. And today, Polish army modernization expenses rank 11 in the world. And our special forces are among only 4 armies certified to run NATO special operations. And yes, for those of you who come from more peaceful neighborhoods than ours, we do consider that a success. Poland and Canada cooperate extensively also today, especially since the beginning of the biggest threat to international order since 1989, which is annexation of and aggression on parts of Ukraine by Russian Federation. Canada just recently announced to support Polish and Poland-led EU projects in Ukraine by almost 10 million Canadian dollars. Prime Minister Harper's government sent a platoon of paratroopers to Poland as part of an effort to strengthen NATO's eastern flank. I can honestly say that for Poland today, Canada is one of the closest strategic allies. Coming Prime Minister Harper's visit to Poland next week, and I'm proud to join him there, to commemorate our 25 years of freedom is another proof of our very close cooperation. We also have great economic ties and a lot of Canadian investment in Poland, but this is a sign of our times that Polish investments in Canada are higher than Canadian in Poland. And also here in Alberta, with 2 big Polish companies buying quite successful Canadian oil and gas companies from Calgary. Today we celebrate one more important anniversary, 10 years in European Union. And European Union, despite the crisis, is historically a huge success as well. And very unique one, because at the same time, it's the biggest on earth sphere of free trade and competition and of solidarity. In terms of solidarity, Poland has got in the last 10 years over 80 billion US dollars in EU funds. And because of those funds, every month in Poland, new roads and schools are being built. In terms of free market and competition, for the first time ever in history, we now export from Poland more to Western Europe than we import. Only in 10 years, we increased our export to Western Europe threefold. And we are the only nation which didn't have recession in the last 23 years. And we created jobs, as many as 2 million in the last 10 years. Most of them, as you know, were the years of the crisis. So we do, as Poland, contribute to the wealth of the whole Europe. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, 25 years ago, my country set a clear goal: to be anchored in the West and to be in the heart of Europe again. To achieve that ambitious goal, we knew we must be not only brave, which was a common feature in our history, but also smart and strong. We had to be not only first to fight, as you remember the famous motto of World War II, but also best to build. And today, after 25 years, we did achieve our goals. We are in NATO, we are in European Union, and we are in those structures the source of solutions, not problems, as some others. Our EU presidency was widely considered one of the best in history of European Union. We do have best relations in history with Germany, but also with France, with Israel. We do have regional alliances within Visegrad Group. And we are sharing our experience of this 25 years, experience of building successful democracy and economy with others. Of course, with Ukrainians, but also other countries east of our border, but also more distant societies like Tunisians, Libyans, even people of Burma. My country is no longer gray. We have shopping malls like this one in Poznan, and we have museums, which you will see now, the newly opened Museum of Polish Jews in Warsaw. And we do have one of the best football, which you wrongly call soccer, stadiums in Europe. And the young guy who was marching with Solidarność flag 26 years ago is now a middle-aged envoy of a free European country to Canada. Yes, many of us worry that this best 25 years of our history for 300 years, maybe ever, may be coming to an end because of what's going on just east of Polish borders with aggressive policy of Federation of Russia. But I can assure you, whatever history brings, Polska will always stand for values which constituted our republic: freedom, peace, prosperity, and human dignity. Thank you very much.